The year was 2147, and humanity had finally crossed a threshold it once thought impossible. For centuries, Earth's telescopes scanned the cosmos for signs of life, but nothing prepared Captain Elias Voss for what awaited him aboard the Aurora Asterisk, a sleek exploration vessel floating near a desolate moon orbiting a dying red giant. This was humanity's first official meeting with an alien species, the Veilith. Elias stood at the edge of the docking bay, his boots clicking softly against the cold metal floor. His heart raced as he adjusted the collar of his uniform. He wasn't just any captain. He'd been chosen to represent humanity during this historic moment. But standing there, surrounded by blinking lights and humming machinery, Elias felt more like a nervous teenager than a seasoned diplomat. The airlock hissed open, and the Veilith delegation stepped through. There were 3 of them, their forms slender and elegant, their skin shimmering faintly in hues of blue and silver. Thin tendrils of light pulsed along their arms and necks, almost like veins glowing beneath translucent flesh. Their faces were serene, with wide, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to hold galaxies within them. Elias locked eyes with one of them, a woman named Syra. She stood slightly ahead of her companions, her presence commanding yet calm. Her bioluminescent glow shifted subtly, as though responding to the tension in the room. Something about her intrigued Elias. Maybe it was the way she tilted her head slightly when observing him, or maybe it was how her gaze lingered just a fraction longer than necessary. Whatever it was, he couldn't look away. "Welcome," Elias began, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you for joining us today." Syra raised a delicate hand, palm facing outward in what appeared to be a gesture of acknowledgement. Her lips parted, revealing no teeth, only smooth, pale gums, but her voice came out clear and melodic, translated flawlessly by the universal comm device clipped to Elias's earpiece. "We are honored to meet you, Captain Voss. Your kind has waited long for this day." Her words sent a shiver down Elias's spine. They sounded rehearsed, diplomatic, but there was something else beneath the surface, a depth he couldn't quite grasp. As they exchanged pleasantries and moved into formal negotiations, Elias found himself struggling to focus. Every time Syra spoke, her tone carried an otherworldly quality that made his thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind. Hours passed, and the discussion grew tense. Topics ranged from trade agreements to shared resources, each sentence weighed down by implications neither side fully understood. Frustration bubbled up inside Elias. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't truly connecting. It wasn't just language barriers. It was deeper, almost instinctual. Then, in a moment of sheer impulsiveness, Elias blurted out the question before he could stop himself. "If I kissed you," he said, leaning forward slightly, "how would you react?" Silence fell over the room like a thick fog. Even the hum of the ship's systems seemed to dim. Elias immediately regretted his words. What had possessed him? Was it nerves? Curiosity? Or simply the overwhelming strangeness of being face to face with someone so utterly alien? Syra's glow flickered erratically, her expression unreadable. For a heartbeat, Elias feared he'd insulted her, or worse, violated some sacred law. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she responded. "To kiss me," she said slowly, her voice laced with an emotion Elias couldn't identify, "would invite chaos into your soul." The weight of her answer hit him like a freight train. Chaos. Into his soul. Before he could ask what she meant, Syra turned and walked away, leaving Elias staring after her, stunned and confused. Little did he know, those 7 simple words would set off a chain reaction neither of them could have foreseen. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of the ship's systems. Elias felt every pair of eyes on him, their weight pressing down like a physical force. His face burned with embarrassment as he replayed his words in his mind. Asterisk, if I kissed you. Asterisk, what had he been thinking? The question sounded ridiculous now, even to him. But it wasn't just the awkwardness that gnawed at him. It was Syra's response. To kiss me would invite chaos into your soul. Her voice echoed in his head, calm but chilling. Chaos. Into his soul. He didn't understand what she meant. And worse, he feared he'd crossed some invisible line. The Valeth delegation had left soon after, retreating back to their own vessel without another word. Syra hadn't looked at him again before disappearing through the airlock. Back aboard the Aurora Asterisk, Elias sat slumped in the briefing room, staring blankly at the polished metal table. His crewmates filed in one by one, their expressions ranging from concern to outright disbelief. Lieutenant Mara Klein, the science officer, broke the silence first. "Captain," she began cautiously, "do you have any idea what you've just done?" Elias sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know it was stupid. Believe me, I already regret it. But can someone explain why asking about, well, kissing, is such a big deal?" Commander Ravi Patil leaned forward, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "It's not just kissing, Captain. You're talking about an alien species we barely understand. Physical intimacy, or anything resembling it, might mean something completely different to them. Hell, they could view it as a religious act, or even an act of war." Elias frowned. "You think I offended her?" "I don't think," Patil said sharply. "I know. We've studied their culture enough to know they value personal boundaries above all else. Touching them without permission, that's practically taboo." The words hit Elias like a punch to the gut. He hadn't meant to offend anyone. He'd only been curious. Still, curiosity wasn't going to fix this mess. As the team debated possible solutions, Elias couldn't shake the image of Syra's glowing form flickering erratically when she answered his question. There was something more to her reaction, something deeper than mere offense. Later that evening, Elias decided to review the classified files on the Valeth stored in the ship's database. Maybe there was something he'd missed, some clue that could help him understand Syra's cryptic warning. Hours passed as he scrolled through pages of information, piecing together fragments of their history, biology, and social structure. What caught his attention most was a section labeled Neural Resonance Asterisk. According to the report, the Valeth communicated not only through sound and light, but also via complex neural signals transmitted through touch. These signals allowed them to share thoughts, emotions, and memories instantly, a kind of telepathy unique to their species. Some researchers theorize that physical contact between humans and Valeth could trigger unpredictable effects due to the vast differences in brain chemistry. Elias froze. Could this be what Syra meant by chaos? If their minds were linked in ways humanity couldn't comprehend, then touching her, or attempting to kiss her, could indeed unleash something uncontrollable. But the file ended abruptly, leaving many questions unanswered. Frustrated, Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts drifted to Syra. Why had she reacted the way she did? Was she angry? Scared? Or was there something else beneath the surface? As if summoned by his thoughts, the comm system crackled to life. "Captain Voss," came a voice from the bridge. "The Valeth request a private meeting. Syra wishes to speak with you." Elias straightened, his pulse quickening. This was his chance to make things right, or perhaps dig himself deeper into trouble. Whatever awaited him, one thing was certain. Syra held answers he desperately needed, and those answers might change everything he thought he knew about the universe and himself. Elias stood outside the airlock, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. He could hear the faint hum of the Valeth ship on the other side, its energy signature pulsing like a heartbeat. This was it, the moment he'd been dreading and anticipating all at once. Syra had requested to see him privately, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting would only deepen the mystery surrounding her cryptic warning. The airlock hissed open, and Elias stepped through, greeted by the soft glow of bioluminescent panels lining the walls. The interior of the Valeth vessel was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Smooth, organic curves replaced sharp angles, and the air carried a faint metallic tang. Syra awaited him in a small chamber, her shimmering form casting an ethereal light across the room. "Captain Voss," she said, her voice steady but tinged with something Elias couldn't quite place. Was it caution, curiosity, or perhaps regret? "Syra," he replied, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "I owe you an apology. My question earlier, it was thoughtless. I didn't mean to offend you." Syra tilted her head slightly, her glowing patterns shifting in response. "You did not offend me, Captain. Your question merely unsettled me." "Unsettled?" Elias frowned. "Why? What does it mean, to invite chaos into my soul?" For a long moment, Syra was silent, as though weighing her next words carefully. Then she spoke. "Among my people, touch is sacred. It connects us, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. When two Valeth join their neural resonance, they become one. Their thoughts, memories, emotions, everything merges." Elias's breath caught. "So when I asked about kissing you, you implied a connection our species are not equipped to handle." Syra finished. "Your mind is unprepared for the depth of what such an act would awaken. To kiss me, or even touch me, would flood your consciousness with sensations and knowledge beyond comprehension. For most humans, it would destroy them." Her words sent a chill down Elias's spine. Destroy them? He'd never imagined his innocent question could carry such weight. But there was more to her explanation. Something she wasn't saying. "Then why didn't you stop me sooner?" he asked. "Why let me ask in the first place?" Syra hesitated, her glow flickering faintly. "Because your question awakened something within me. Something ancient." "Ancient?" Elias echoed, confusion etched across his face. "What do you mean?" She turned away, her movements graceful yet deliberate. "Our ancestors were explorers, much like you. They sought connections with other species, hoping to expand their understanding of the universe. But some bonds proved too dangerous. The merging of minds led to instability, madness, even death. Over time, we seal ourselves off, vowing never to risk such chaos again." Elias stared at her, his mind racing. "And now? What happens now?" "That depends on you," Syra said softly, turning back to face him. Her eyes glimmered with an intensity that made Elias's chest tighten. "Your curiosity has opened a door neither of us can close. If you wish to understand, you must be prepared to face the consequences." Consequences. The word hung heavy in the air, filling the silence between them. Elias knew he should walk away. He should leave this mystery unsolved and focus on the mission. But something deep inside him refused to let go. There was a pull, an undeniable urge to know more. "Tell me what I need to do," he said finally, his voice firm despite the unease swirling in his gut. Syra regarded him silently, her glowing patterns shifting once more. Then she nodded. "Very well. But remember, Captain, once begun, there is no turning back." As Elias followed her deeper into the Valeth ship, he felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Whatever lay ahead, he knew it would change him. And possibly humanity. Forever. Back aboard the Aurora *, Elias couldn't stop thinking about Syra's words. Her warning had been clear. Touching a Valeth could unleash chaos, overwhelming his mind with sensations and knowledge he wasn't prepared for. Yet, instead of dissuading him, her cryptic explanation only fueled his curiosity. What exactly was this neural resonance she spoke of? And why did it feel like there was more to her story than she'd revealed? Elias approached Dr. Mara Klein, the ship's science officer, with an idea that bordered on reckless. "Mara," he began, pacing in front of her workstation, "what if we tried to simulate the effects of a Valeth neural connection without actually touching them?" Mara raised an eyebrow, her tablet momentarily forgotten in her hands. "Simulate it? Captain, do you realize how dangerous that sounds? We're talking about interfacing human consciousness with alien biology. One wrong move, and you could fry your brain." I know the risks, Elias said firmly, though his voice betrayed a hint of unease. But think about what we could learn. If we can understand their neural signals, maybe we can bridge the gap between our species. Maybe we can prove to them that we're ready for this kind of connection. Mara sighed, shaking her head. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. This isn't just some experiment. It's playing with fire. But she hesitated, glancing at the data scrolling across her screen. If you're serious, I might have a way to test it safely. Over the next few days, Elias and Mara worked tirelessly to modify the ship's neural scanners. Normally used for mapping brain activity, the equipment was reprogrammed to mimic the frequencies associated with Veilith communication. The plan was simple, or as simple as such a risky endeavor could be. Elias would wear the scanner helmet while focusing on recordings of Syra's bioluminescent patterns, allowing the machine to translate her neural signals into something his mind could process. The day of the experiment arrived, and tension filled the lab. Commander Patel stood nearby, arms crossed, clearly disapproving but unable to talk Elias out of it. "This is insane," Patel muttered under his breath. "If anything goes wrong, don't expect me to clean up the mess." "Noted," Elias replied dryly, strapping himself into the chair. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. "Let's do this." As the scanner hummed to life, Elias felt a strange tingling sensation spreading through his skull. At first, it was subtle, a faint buzzing, like static electricity. But soon, the world around him dissolved into swirling colors and fragmented images. He saw flashes of Syra's past, her standing beneath twin suns on her homeworld, her skin glowing brighter than ever. A group of Veilith gathered in a circle, their lights pulsing in sync, a moment of pain so intense it made Elias gasp aloud. Then came the memories, not hers, but his own, twisted and distorted. Childhood fears, long-forgotten dreams, regrets buried deep within his subconscious, all surged forward, colliding with the alien visions flooding his mind. It was too much. His body convulsed, sweat pouring down his face as the scanner's readings spiked off the charts. "Shut it down," Mara shouted, rushing to disconnect the equipment. But it was too late. Elias's eyes rolled back, and he slumped forward, unconscious. When he woke hours later in the medical bay, Elias found Mara and Patel hovering over him, their faces etched with worry. "What happened?" he croaked, his throat dry. "You overloaded your neural pathways," Mara explained grimly. "Another minute, and you might not have woken up." Elias groaned, pressing a hand to his temple. Despite the headache pounding behind his eyes, fragments of the experience lingered in his mind. He remembered Syra's voice, soft yet haunting, whispering words he couldn't fully recall. Most importantly, he realized one thing: the bond he glimpsed wasn't just dangerous, it was real. And now, it was part of him. Elias woke to the sterile hum of the medical bay, his body heavy and his mind foggy. The experiment had left him physically drained, but the real toll was far deeper. Memories, his own and Syra's, swirled in his thoughts like storm clouds, refusing to settle. He felt different, sharper, somehow, as though his senses had been fine-tuned to a level he hadn't known existed. But along with this heightened awareness came an unsettling weight, a constant buzzing at the edges of his consciousness. Dr. Mara Klein hovered nearby, her face lined with worry. "How are you feeling, Captain?" she asked cautiously, holding a scanner above his head. "Like my brain's been rewired," Elias replied hoarsely, sitting up slowly. His hands trembled slightly as he rubbed his temples. "What exactly did I see in there?" Mara hesitated before answering. "The neural simulation tapped into something beyond what we anticipated. Your brain processed fragments of Syra's memories, emotions, even parts of her species' collective consciousness. It's no wonder your system overloaded. Collective consciousness." The phrase sent a shiver down Elias's spine. He remembered glimpses of alien landscapes bathed in twin suns, ancient rituals performed under crystalline skies, and moments of pure connection between the Valeth, their lights merging like stars colliding. But amid these visions were darker scenes, chaos, pain, loss, that left him uneasy. Commander Patel stepped forward, arms crossed tightly over his chest. "This has gone too far, Captain. You're risking not just yourself but the entire mission. If the Valeth find out what you've done..." "They already know," a melodic voice interrupted from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Syra standing there, her bioluminescent glow dimmer than usual. Her expression was unreadable, but the faint flicker of her patterns betrayed unease. She walked into the room, her movements deliberate yet graceful, and stopped beside Elias's bed. "You should not have tried to simulate the bond," she said softly, her gaze fixed on him. "It is not meant to be forced or replicated. Such connections must occur naturally, or they will consume you." Elias swallowed hard, guilt gnawing at him. "I didn't mean to violate your trust, Syra. I just wanted to understand." Syra studied him for a long moment, her glowing patterns shifting subtly. "Understanding comes at a cost, Captain. The bond now exists between us, whether you intended it or not. Your mind carries echoes of my people's resonance. To sever it would leave both of us incomplete. What happens if we don't sever it?" Elias asked, dread pooling in his stomach. "The bond will grow stronger," Syra explained. "You will experience more of our memories, emotions, and thoughts. Over time, you may lose yourself entirely to become part of us." Her words hit Elias like a punch to the gut. Lose himself, the idea terrified him. But strangely, it also intrigued him. He couldn't deny the pull he felt toward the Valeth's world, their symphony of light and thought. It was beautiful, intoxicating even. Yet he knew it came with dangers he barely understood. Mara broke the tense silence. "Is there any way to stabilize the bond? To make it safe for him?" Syra shook her head. "It is not within your control. Only time will tell if he can endure it, or if it will destroy him." As the weight of her words sank in, Elias realized the gravity of his decision. He could walk away now, try to distance himself from the Valeth, and hope the bond faded. Or he could embrace it, delve deeper into their world, and risk everything, including his humanity. For better or worse, one thing was certain. Elias was no longer the same man who had first asked that fateful question. The bond had changed him, and there was no turning back. Days turned into weeks as Elias wrestled with the growing bond between himself and Syra. It wasn't just a connection. It was alive, pulsing within him like a second heartbeat. At first, it had been subtle, fleeting flashes of light behind his eyelids, whispers that danced at the edge of his hearing. But soon, the sensations grew stronger, more vivid. He began to see fragments of alien landscapes in his dreams, vast crystalline structures humming with harmonic frequencies, rivers of liquid light flowing across barren moonscapes. These visions weren't random. They were memories, emotions, even thoughts belonging to Syra and her people. Syra visited him often, her presence both comforting and unsettling. She explained that the bond was tied to the Valeth's star symphony, a sacred ritual where their collective consciousness merged through shared neural resonance. For the Valeth, it was a moment of unity, a way to maintain balance and harmony among their kind. But for Elias, it was something else entirely, an overwhelming flood of sensations he struggled to comprehend. One evening, as they stood together on the observation deck of the Aurora Asterisk, Syra turned to him with an intensity that made his breath catch. "You cannot keep resisting the bond, Captain. It is changing you, whether you wish it or not." "I'm not resisting," Elias replied, though his voice wavered. "I just don't know how to handle it." "You must embrace it fully, or let it go," she said softly. "There is no middle ground. If you continue down this path, you will need to experience the star symphony yourself. Only then can you understand what it means to be connected, to truly merge with another mind." Elias hesitated. The thought terrified him, but deep down, he knew she was right. He couldn't keep running from what he'd unleashed. "Take me there," he said finally, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Syra led him to a hidden sanctuary deep within the moon's core, a cavern filled with towering crystalline formations that glowed faintly in shades of blue and silver. The air hummed with energy, vibrating through every cell in his body. Here, the Valeth performed their rituals, their forms blending seamlessly with the crystals as they pulsed in unison. As Elias stepped closer, the hum grew louder, resonating in his chest like a heartbeat. Syra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch surprisingly warm. "Close your eyes," she whispered. "Let the symphony guide you." Elias obeyed, surrendering to the sensations washing over him. At first, it was chaos. Images, sounds, emotions colliding in a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Then, slowly, the noise began to coalesce into something beautiful. He saw stars being born, galaxies colliding, worlds crumbling and reforming. He felt the joy of creation, the agony of destruction, the endless cycle of life and death. But the experience came at a cost. His body trembled violently as the symphony pushed him to his limits. Blood trickled from his nose, and his vision blurred. Syra watched with concern, her glow dimming as if sharing his pain. "You've seen enough," she said urgently, pulling him back. "If you stay any longer, it will consume you." Elias stumbled, gasping for air, his mind reeling. Though weakened, he now understood the depth of the Valeth's connection and the price of trying to bridge two vastly different species. As he collapsed into Syra's arms, one thought echoed in his mind. The bond had changed him forever, but it had also shown him a glimpse of something greater than himself, something worth fighting for. Elias's body was failing him. The bond with Syra had pushed him beyond his limits, and the toll it took on his human physiology became impossible to ignore. His skin grew pale, his eyes sunken, and his movements sluggish. Yet despite the physical deterioration, his mind felt sharper than ever, alive with the echoes of the Valeth's Star Symphony. He could still hear their harmonies, feel their collective heartbeat pulsing through him. But he knew he couldn't survive much longer in this state. Syra stayed by his side, her glowing patterns dimmer now, as if mirroring his decline. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her words carried a weight that made Elias's chest tighten. "You have seen what we are," she said one evening, her voice soft yet tinged with sorrow. "But you cannot remain here. Your kind is not built for this connection." "I don't want to leave," Elias whispered, his voice weak but resolute. "Not yet. There's so much more I need to understand." "It is too late for understanding," Syra replied, her hand hovering near his, but never quite touching. "The bond has grown too strong. If you stay, it will consume you entirely, and destabilize my people in the process." Elias clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "Then tell me how to fix it. How do I make this right?" Syra hesitated, her glow flickering faintly. "There is only one way. You must sever the bond willingly. By doing so, you will allow us to restore balance within our consciousness. But know this, you will lose everything you've gained from the connection. All memories, all sensations tied to us. They will fade." The thought of losing the bond, the beauty, the unity, the profound sense of belonging, felt like tearing out a part of himself. But Elias knew she was right. He couldn't risk harming the Valeth or jeopardizing humanity's fragile alliance with them. With a heavy heart, he nodded. "Do it." Syra guided him back to the crystalline sanctuary where the Star Symphony resonated endlessly. This time, instead of immersing himself in its energy, Elias stood apart, focusing on the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Syra placed her hands over his temples, her touch cool against his feverish skin. "Close your eyes," she murmured. "Let go." As the bond unraveled, Elias felt a searing pain shoot through his skull, followed by an overwhelming emptiness. The harmonies faded, the visions dissolved, and the connection that had once filled him with light vanished completely. When he opened his eyes, tears streamed down his face, not from pain, but from loss. Though weakened, Elias returned to Earth a changed man. He shared his experiences with humanity's leaders, urging them to approach the Vailith with respect and caution. His sacrifice inspired a new era of cooperation between the two species, proving that even fleeting connections could spark lasting change. Back aboard her ship, Syra watched the stars through a viewport, her glow steady once more. Though Elias was gone, his presence lingered in her thoughts, a reminder that understanding often came at great cost. And yet, it was worth it. For in bridging the gap between their worlds, they had forged something greater than either could have imagined alone.